doing, what they're teaching you in school tends to be quite subject specific, but the thing that it matters for every single person. It's like what you do when you've got into your career, or you want to start your career.
So when you're a uni student, just see those thousands of pounds just enter your bank account and be like, okay, well, I'm just going to spend this money on what I want to spend this money on.
And it is a lot of pressure, just because like as an international student, most of the time your parents are paying so much money and they believe it's like a worthy investment.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the 411 podcast. So this season is going to be completely different to how we filmed last season, which was, can I say, a success, because like I said, if you haven't listened to our trailer episode, we had people listening from the Philippines. So let's try and make this an international podcast, guys. We have new voices, new people coming on to the podcast. I'm sitting with two amazing people beside me. Do you want to introduce yourself and what's your name and what are you doing at the moment? Whether you're in uni or working or whatever.
I'm Maddy, I'm 31, I'm a second year biochem student, so a bit late to the game with the uni thing. So I've spent my 20s just kind of figuring out what I want to do, and now I'm finally figured out what I want to do, and I'm absolutely loving what I'm doing.
Amazing. And
I'm Nomtha, and I'm second year studying economics at Sonia University. I'm quite enjoying it. I don't really know where I'm going to end up, but for now I'm enjoying it.
yeah, I guess we're all in the same boat. I'm meant to be graduating this year. I have no idea what I'm doing next year, so you can relate there.
Yeah.
But yeah, guys, so this episode is going to be on the subject of what they don't teach us in school, because let's face it, there's a lot that they don't teach us in school. What they did teach us in school, like Pythagoras theorem, can you remember doing that in maths?
Yeah.
Do we use that in real life? No, like we don't.
Even the volume of a cylinder, like where?
To be fair, in the STEM stuff, it comes in handy, but I've had to read it.
Yeah. But I guess everyone does different careers, so it's kind of like, when am I ever going to use this? Whereas they could have taught us things like we're going to touch on in this episode, like financial literacy, basic professional etiquette, like writing emails, budgeting, being thrown into like uni from like going teenage to like straight adulthood. Even being 19, you're still a teenager, but just being thrown into like, now you have to learn how to budget, how to save, how to do this and that, and what it leads to.
Yeah.
So one of the biggest things that I know people struggle on a day-to-day basis is personal finance and things like budgeting and like saving money. Like, Maddy, what do you know about that?
Yeah, well, there's a reason I didn't start in uni until I was like in my 30s. So doing, what they're teaching you in school tends to be quite subject specific, but the thing that it matters for every single person. It's like what you do when you've got into your career, or you want to start your career. How are you going to like save money, spend it? What happens when there's an emergency? Like, they don't teach any of this kind of stuff in school. And some of the like biggest problems in our society is centered around obviously finance and people getting into debt, but how are you preventing that in the first place? It's when you're not taught any of this stuff, you're going to end up having to make the mistake yourself, and unfortunately debt is something that can compound and can spiral and you can't get out of it. So if you don't understand, how to pay bills, just the admin of contacting different companies, like gas and electric, council tax, how does any of that work? Personal budgeting, so it doesn't matter if, maybe you've got your first paycheck when you're 18, or you've got a student loan, like you don't get thousands of pounds just given to you as a teenager until you go to uni, and then they're like, here's 2 to 3 grand, don't blow it, but it's going to last you like 3 months. Like, how are you going to do that? I guess you guys have had like that exact situation.
Yeah, I mean, it's so easy to like, when you're a uni student, it's so easy to, when you're a uni student, just see those thousands of pounds just enter your bank account and be like, okay, well, I'm just going to spend this money on what I want to spend this money on, and just go crazy with it. Especially if you've never like had that before, which is obviously most young teenagers.
So what people tend to do is, just kind of run with it for the first year and like deal with it, and it's fine because we'll get another student loan, and you can kind of learn through doing that. But if you don't learn, and if you go down the starting to get into debt route, it's a really, really funny balance, because credit cards can help you build credit. They can be a positive thing, but they can be kind of hellish if you don't know what you're doing, and it's really easy to spiral out of control. You know, you could end up getting interest on your debt, and then you're starting off your career as a graduate, not just with, you know, thousands of pounds of student loan, but you've also got all this consumer debt that you've no idea what to do with.
Yeah.
And I feel like even if you are like a successful person, like earning so much, I feel like if you don't know how to budget or save your money, like that just goes out the window, like it's meaningless.
Yeah.
Because it's like you said, like you can't really buy a house if you're not saving money.
Yeah, that could be a huge problem. It's like there's quite a lot of examples where someone will have like a well-paying job, so either they just ended up with a good job as a graduate, or perhaps they just, I don't know, like somehow got into a, you know, well-paying career, which is great, but then if they don't know how to budget, even when you're like a mid to top earner, what happens if it's an emergency? What happens if you lose your job, or if a pandemic happens? Like, you know, how are you able to kind of pull back and have like less expenditure? And
it is quite scary. It's really quite scary, especially as a young adult, and having the pressure to like figure out your whole life as well when you've never really been taught like a mortgage. I didn't know what a mortgage was until like a year ago, which is really like bad. I wish I knew that kind of like, not that obviously I'm aiming to get a mortgage now, but I wish I knew all of this stuff in school than just teaching like the basics of like what is this. So it's just less scary. Like the idea of adulthood is just like way less scary, and like working and stuff like that.
So how did you guys feel when you were in school, and you know, somewhere along the line you would have heard the word mortgage and debt and credit cards? Did you guys kind of think, oh, this is something future me will figure out?
Definitely, yeah. I feel like they kind of put it into this is your future thing, which yeah, I understand. It is like, obviously when you're 16 or 15 years old in school, it's something to worry about in your future, like early adulthood / like whatever adulthood. So they'll touch on it and not really speak about it, but I feel like it should be spoken about because it just makes the idea like less scary.
Because it's like saying, oh, this is something for future you to worry about, similar to, you know, health and loads of other things.
Yeah.
Like, at what point in future you do you feel like you should, you know, you think, oh, I'll just be 25 one day and I'll have my stuff together. It's like, it doesn't happen, you know. I'm 31, I still don't have things together.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, you want to like learn by experience, but if those experiences end up being things like pandemics or job losses, that is a really, really tough situation to have to learn in. So having things fixed, kind of like a prevention is better than cure thing, you know, would be, think of like how many people that would impact in their 20s if they already knew how to fix a problem before it happens. You know, what you do with your car insurance when it's due, it's like, have you saved up £2,000 to pay for it? Or you're going to have to pay more for it because you can only afford to pay it monthly, but then overall you're paying them an extra like £500 or something. It's the same with, you know, any like purchases and finance. You might end up paying more than the value of the item, and it's just because you haven't been able to save up. Like the corners of this chair is stabbing my thighs. Right, I'm not.
I blame Joy. I'm joking.
Ignore the position I'm sitting in. They can't see this.
As long as the camera can't, right? I don't blame you.
So it'd be really interesting to understand a bit of your perspective on this, because, you know, for me, completely different scenario, but you as an international student, what have been your issues with learning to budget in the UK and figuring out student economic life?
Yeah, I think like for me it's obviously been different because I was not only thrown into adulthood, I had to leave my family and everything and just like come and settle here. So like budgeting, having to like, you know, have part-time jobs as well, to just try to like, you know, adjust to a new different economy. So yeah, that was different, and I probably did struggle a lot with like budgeting. Like I think I started off as like skeptical as well, like just trying to learn it myself. But yeah, I think it would have been beneficial if like the school system had like prepared me for like life, trying to like figure everything out, you know. So when you talk of mortgages and all those things, I'm just like, I pack them for the future. So it scares me when you start saying like you're 31 and it's still a problem. So yeah, it's definitely something that's really like important to look into.
Do you feel like there's a pressure because obviously you've come here as an international student to like make it.
Yeah.
Because the people at home, in your home, are kind of like, they're not counting on it, but it's like, we've sent you here. If you don't make something of yourself and you don't, like, there's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, I think there is a lot of pressure just because, like, as an international student, most of the times your parents are paying so much money and they believe it's like a worthy investment for you to kind of be something, and everyone just expects you to, like, you know, grow and become something. I know someone who started their own company when they came here, and because that person is connected to my family, I know that they expect me to, like, come with something new as well, like, do something. You can't just, like, you know, come back and be nothing. Like, they expect so much. Whereas, like, I feel like school didn't prepare me for that. Like, you know, didn't prepare me to be the entrepreneur that, like, everyone expects me to be.
Yeah. No, definitely. Because I can't imagine how it would be for an international student, because I'm first generation. So my parents have come here and left kind of like everything behind, like their family behind in their home country and everything. Just depending on us to actually like build something of ourselves type of thing. So there's that pressure, but I can't imagine how it is being a proper international student.
Yeah, I can imagine. To be fair, I think it's really nice for you guys who grew up here. But I think, like, as an international student as well, you kind of just like look more into like more opportunities. You're really looking into like just becoming the best, mainly because of the pressure from family. But yeah, definitely school does not prepare you for it.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Do you think there are some problems? Have you faced any issues? Just the really basics of adapting like a new currency. Is that, I know that's a really strange question, but how is that? Like, how do you budget in a different world almost?
That's a good question because I genuinely struggled. Like, the first time I came here, I think I had like $1,000 US. So I was so excited just to go to the bank, and they changed me like, and they gave me like £600. I was like, how? I was so heartbroken because I was like, I've got £1,000. And for me, that was like my first time holding such like a large amount of money. I was like, wow, reach me. And then just to get it like squeezed down to 600, that was like painful. But yeah, I think most of the time I just now like try to adapt to this currency instead, to kind of like just focus on working and getting my own money from this side, because it's genuinely a rip-off to my parents as well to be sending their money, because it just gets squeezed too close to nothing.
Does it get fees and stuff as well?
Yeah. There's a lot that goes into it, so yeah.
It's almost like there's this blanket amount of financial kind of problems that we don't get talked about, but then there's this whole other layer that you've had to deal with. And that's going to be like specific to every country in the world as well. So
and I think like if we went like on investments and stuff like that, it would have been so much easier to kind of like just, you know, be making money whilst I'm here, like, you know, investing in like companies and everything like that, but we just never know about those things.
The investment side of stuff, it was a kind of, future you, when you're an adult, you'll figure that out. But actually, I mean, you know, we're similar age, but we're far apart enough in age that we, you know, 10 years difference is enough to be a difference. And when I was growing up, there wasn't social media, so you couldn't go on YouTube to find, you know, how to invest in whatever 500 and something about crypto didn't exist. Whereas now there's loads of information out there, but there is so much information that it can be really confusing, and because it's not taught in schools, you'll find that there could be, you know, people that they've maybe figured out the budgeting, or they've got some spare cash or something and they like to get into investing, and their information on how to do that is coming from randoms on the internet that might not be the best source, you know. If that was sort of in the school system or in the education wherever, that would be so useful, because you'd know maybe how to go, you know, a bit more risky if you wanted to, but how to still do it safely. And there's so many like things to be learned. And a big problem I had, so I wanted to, you know, try and get into investing. I had like a bit of money, and I made the mistake of trying to, this company sounds good, all eggs in one basket. And that's a really risky move to make, but you know, my brain was like, that'll work, cool. But that's not the way of doing it. I mean, you know, trying to learn how to like balance those investments would have been so much better for me now. And doing it from an earlier age, I wasn't financially in a position to do it, you know, when I was like 18, 19, I had a bit of a like slow start, I guess, in that aspect. But if like you can even just put like a small amount aside, the effect of compound interest, and also just understanding compounding in terms of debt as well. So the earlier you start anything, you know, the further ahead it's going to be when you're my age. So 10 years of building debt is a lot of money, but 10 years of investing is a heck of a lot of money. So if you were taught how to get there earlier,
it would have been easier.
Yeah, so and the other thing is like, I feel like school doesn't also prepare us for like stress and everything like that, because even statistically it's been proven like that 31% of young people, youths, are like overwhelmed, and like over 30% are like suffering from depression. And like in addition to that, like 23% of those suffering from depression actually skip meals because of that depression. So I feel like these things are not even like topics that are like discussed like that in school. And even if like they might be like hints on time to like talk about the topics, they just like leave them hanging. So there's never like an emphasis on how to deal with stress, how to manage like all the pressure that you get in school. Like, because I feel like all these young people, they have so much to do, so much to start dealing with, like especially when you get to uni, you're now like dealing with everything that's being thrown at you, and you don't know how to handle it because you've never been trained. So I don't know if you guys have also like experienced or like seen people who suffered from those things, like, you know, stress management and all that.
Definitely, it's like, you know, the general school pressures of exams and peer pressure and social media and all of that, you know, it doesn't, it's not that it just goes away when you kind of go into adulthood. You just end up with new problems. Like in my family, there's been multiple suicides in my family. I grew up single parent, or, you know, from the age of like 10 onwards. And she found it really, really tough. And she did not have the tools to be able to manage, you know, depression and anxiety and stuff. And it ended up, you know, really ending up as bad as it could get. And it spiraled out of control. And having a lack of knowledge of seeing it happen in real time to you, it's really difficult to recognise that, you know, it's happening to you. Probably a bit easier now because there's, you know, resources and stuff, but if you don't understand how to like nip it in the bud early, it really can spiral out of control to the point where you've got, you know, really severe mental illness, and it can become a big thing.
I think it's important to all our listeners out there to really understand that we are actually all in the same boat, and we are all going through this together. You aren't alone out there. I really want to stress that we are all in the same boat. We're all trying to figure out this whole life thing together. You're not alone, and it is a real thing out there. Don't let anyone discourage you and, you know, tell you off for not being at a certain point in your life, when really we have a whole life and years ahead of us to really figure out our life. There shouldn't be no pressure that at a certain age you should have this and this and this. So yeah, guys, money issues are a temporary thing. Like, I feel like money comes and goes. At the end of the day, like, it's not the be-all and end-all of life. It gets you places and it buys you freedom, but there's really more to this life. And just growing up, it's so important that we hit these like learning curves and we have these struggles in life, because it just makes us, it builds us character.
No one has ever achieved anything great without having to go through a bunch of stuff on the way. Like, you just can't, like, you know, say you aced an exam, that okay, maybe in primary school it happens easily, but for most people you really have to study doing that. You have to maybe pull an all-nighter. You know, if it's figuring out how to get out of debt, you're gonna learn a lot from that, or going through sort of personal issues, and it builds your character. So if you're someone that's going through something now, just know that there is like the light at the end of the tunnel.
And it will be okay, guys.
Yeah.
Like, it will be okay.
And you will actually be a better person from it. It's like, as insane as it sounds, I'm thankful for all of these things that happened to me through my 20s, because I would have been a different person, and I'm really happy with where my life is now. I think it's, you know, it's great. But it's because of, you know, going through these problems, and even though they took, you know, a certain number of years and things to get through, I've still just come out as a better person. And I think so many people are going to be in that same boat when you just sort of push through. You know, we've just come out of a pandemic, or we're coming out of a pandemic. The amount of stuff people have learned about themselves just going through this process, people have lost people. But in 10 years' time, having gone through this struggle, you're just going to be just a better person for it.
Yeah, that's really true. And I think, yeah, that's really true. Yeah, and I think like in general, like school doesn't teach us that to fail is okay. Like there's still life afterwards. Like you can pick yourself up and keep going. And yeah, another thing that I was gonna add is like emotional intelligence. I feel like school doesn't prepare us for emotional intelligence. You see, I remember when I was at the airport coming this side, there was this man, he looked educated, he was probably like, I think, but he didn't know how to handle the situation there, because in his head he was the most superior one, but he couldn't like have a normal conversation with like the person who was like saying, no, you guys have to queue up, because he wanted to go straight through, and they were like, it's not yet time. So at the end of the day, he was like there for the longest time. And I feel like emotional intelligence, if we don't know how to communicate well with other people and all that, because that cost him. He was meant to be the first one, he was in a hurry, but at the end of the day, he got in the plane last. And he shouted, he tried to call the people he knew, but at that time, there are places where you're not that powerful anymore. And he faced that brutal truth, and everyone was looking at him awkwardly. And I feel like school doesn't prepare us for like those settings where how to treat other people, how to basically like engage in conversations with other people. I don't know if you guys can relate.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like it doesn't really teach you how to like communicate with people on a day-to-day basis. Self-awareness and awareness of like, you know, like sometimes when you're in your own bubble for so long, and you have no like awareness of other people and how it may make someone feel by you doing this or you saying this. Because at the end of the day, like no matter how much money you make or where you make it, we are all on the same line in life.
Yeah.
That's what I believe, and I think like that is the reality of it.
Yeah, true.
It's really easy to get stuck in an echo chamber where, you know, you're surrounding yourself with either intentionally or just by accident, because the algorithm on social media shows you what you're looking at. And the more of certain content or certain ideas that you're looking for, that the more you'll get shown, and then you end up, it becomes really difficult to really understand others' perspective and just develop empathy.
Yeah.
I really believe empathy is a skill that you can learn. It's like when I grew up, you know, I had various friends from various backgrounds, but I really didn't understand what that background meant, you know, why their behaviours were certain things, you know, why that would match to their background. Whereas now, having tried to understand people's backgrounds a bit more, and perhaps, you know, where they come from or like the socioeconomic status, you're able to actually, when you meet someone new, maybe you're not the person that I just assume you are. And yeah, empathy, as you say, it's like really something that it's missing in the education system.
The last point is like self-defense. I feel like school doesn't teach us self-defense as well, because like for example, safety is like 90% awareness, knowledge, self-esteem, attitude, confidence and choice, and 10% strategy. And I feel like we don't learn these things in school. So yeah, I think like self-defense as well is like so important, and we don't learn any of those things in school. And like in the next episode, if you guys stay tuned, we will definitely be talking about like the solutions to those problems, like what we can do, because at the end of the day, it's in our power. So like for example, with self-defense, if you learn how to do it, it enhances patience, provides physical exercise, improves respect for other people, and so many more, which we'll be telling you guys in the next episode. So stay tuned.
We'll see you guys soon. So podcast rated number 1 is the 411. Till next time, guys. Bye.